Story 1. The Porcelain Jail. The manual didn't call it a toy. It called it a vessel. And it gave one specific warning. Do not damage the porcelain. But I didn't listen. And now, I was going to pay. I wrapped the silver duct tape around the doll's legs, binding them tight to the kitchen chair. I used the whole roll. I wasn't crazy. I was desperate. I just needed to keep that thing immobile until the sun came up. I turned my back for 1 second to grab the lighter fluid. Pop. It sounded like a wet balloon bursting behind my ear. I spun around. The chair was empty. The tape hadn't been peeled off. It had been shredded from the inside. The kitchen was dead silent. Then I saw it. It was sitting on the counter next to the knife block. When I bought it, it had a painted rosy smile. That smile was gone. Its mouth was now unhinged, hanging open in a silent porcelain scream. I didn't think, I just wanted it dead. I grabbed the heavy metal meat tenderizer from the drawer. I raised it high and brought it down with all my strength on the doll's left hand. Crack. I didn't hear porcelain shatter. I heard wet bones snap. I fell to my knees, blinding white pain exploding in my arm. The doll sat there untouched, not a scratch on it. But when I looked at my own left hand, my fingers were twisted backward. Purple bruises were already blooming on my skin. My knuckles were powder. I gasped for air, staring at the thing. It slowly turned its head to look at me. Whatever I did to it, I did to myself. Creak. The sound came from the ceiling. Directly above me, Lily's room. I ignored the agony in my shattered hand. I scrambled up and ran for the stairs. My heart wasn't beating. It was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I kicked her door open. Get away from her. The doll was already there, hovering over my sleeping daughter. But it wasn't small anymore. It had swollen. The red felt suit was splitting at the seams, revealing slick, black, oily skin underneath. It raised a porcelain hand toward Lily's throat. I couldn't hit it. I couldn't cut it. If I hurt it, I hurt me. But I had to move it. I lunged. I tackled the thing, wrapping my arms around its hard, cold body. We crashed into the hallway and tumbled down the stairs. Thud, crack, thud. Every time it hit a step, I felt a new rib break in my own chest. It was like tackling a bag of cement. By the time we hit the bottom floor, I could barely breathe. We landed in front of the roaring fireplace. I couldn't let it go back up there. I had to end this. I rolled us both into the fire. The flames roared up, swallowing us. I waited for the smell of melting plastic. I waited for the doll to scream. Instead, I smelled my own hair singing. The fire didn't touch the doll. It moved through the doll and latched onto me. My skin blistered, my clothes caught. I tried to crawl out, but my legs wouldn't work. The damage was reflecting instantly. I looked through the wall of orange flame. I saw Lily standing at the top of the stairs, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy," she whispered. I tried to scream, "Run!" But smoke filled my lungs. I collapsed into the ash. The fire died down instantly. I couldn't move. I was just a charred husk on the hearth. But through my burned eyelids, I saw the doll. It was sitting in the middle of the ashes, completely pristine. Its red suit was perfect. Its porcelain face was smooth and cool. It stood up. It brushed a speck of gray ash off its shoulder. It didn't look at me, it looked up at my daughter. It held out a hand. And Lily, she began to walk down the stairs to take it. Story 2, the midnight shift. The timestamp on the monitor read 3 a.m. The mall had been locked down for 4 hours. The alarms were set. So there was no logical reason for a child to be sitting on Santa's lap in the dead center of the atrium. I leaned closer to the grainy black and white screen. The Santa was a mannequin, plastic, stiff, frozen in a jolly wave. But the child was moving. Its shoulders were heaving up and down. It was sobbing. I grabbed my flashlight and the radio. I didn't want to go down there. The air in a dead mall feels heavy, like it's holding its breath. I took the service elevator. The only sound was the squeak of my rubber soles on the polished tile. I walked toward the Christmas village. The smell hit me first. It didn't smell like floor wax anymore. It smelled copper, like a butcher shop that had lost power. I passed the row of animatronic reindeer. They were supposed to be unplugged. Click. Whir. I froze. The reindeer on the left turned its mechanical head. Its glass eye caught my flashlight beam. Then the next one turned. And the next. They weren't looking at me. They were looking toward the throne. They were an audience. I swallowed the fear and stepped over the velvet rope. "Hey," I called out. "Kid, we're closed." The child didn't answer. It just kept burying its face in Santa's chest. I got close to the Santa mannequin. Up close, the texture was wrong. It wasn't smooth fiberglass. It was pockmarked, leathery. I reached out and touched Santa's hand. It was cold, it was soft, and it was damp. I recoiled, wiping the grease on my pants. This wasn't a display. It was skin. Dead, cured skin. I turned to the child. "Hey, look at me." I grabbed the kid's shoulder to pull him away from that thing. My hand hit hard wood. The child didn't stand up. Its head spun around 180 degrees on a rusty swivel. It wasn't a child. It was a ventriloquist dummy. Its jaw hung loose on rubber bands. But the face wasn't painted wood. It was my face. It had my eyes, my nose, the exact scar on my chin. The dummy's wooden jaw clacked open. It spoke with my voice. "Shift change," it whispered. The mall lights died instantly. The only light came from the red emergency signs, bathing the atrium in blood-red warnings. Behind the dummy, the meat Santa stood up. Bones crunched as it stretched. I didn't wait to see what it was. I sprinted. I scrambled up the dead escalator, my lungs burning. I could hear the slap, slap, slap of wet feet hitting the tile behind me. I burst into the security office, slammed the steel door, and threw the deadbolt. I collapsed into my chair. Hyperventilating, I was safe. Nothing could get through that steel door. I looked up at the wall of monitors to track them. Screen 1, atrium, empty. Screen 2, escalator, empty. Screen 3, hallway, empty. I frowned. Where did they go? Then I looked at screen 4. Screen 4 showed the inside of the security office. It showed me sitting in the chair. But on the screen, I wasn't hyperventilating. I was sitting perfectly still. My head was tilted to the side. And standing directly behind my chair was the dummy. It was holding a knife. I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck. I said, my own voice whispered right into my ear, "Shift. Change." Story 3. The carolers human beings need to breathe. That is a biological fact. But the things standing on my front lawn, they haven't taken a breath in 6 hours. They had been singing Silent Night on a loop since midnight. Perfect 4-part harmony, no pauses, no water breaks. I stood by the front door, hands over my ears. The sound wasn't just loud, it was drilling into the drywall. I looked through the peephole. 4 of them. Tall top hats, thick red scarves wrapped up to their noses. They stood ankle-deep in the snow, perfectly still. "Please!" I screamed through the wood. "Just go away, I don't have any money!" The singing stopped instantly. The silence was worse. It was heavy. It pressed against the house like water. Through the peephole, I saw the tallest one move. He slowly raised a gloved hand to his neck. He grabbed the edge of his red wool scarf. He pulled it down. I stumbled back. There was no mouth. There was no jaw. Growing out of the center of his throat was a wide, hollow cone made of pale, wet bone. It looked like the bell of a trumpet, but it was fused to his flesh. The bone trumpet quivered. The sound hit the house like a physical wall. Crash. The living room window exploded inward. Glass dust coated the carpet. I fell to the floor, clutching my head. My nose started to bleed. The sound wasn't music anymore. It was a frequency. It was vibrating my teeth inside my gums. And the lyrics had changed. They weren't singing about holy infants. The voices were booming, layered, and distorted. "Open the door," they harmonized. It was a cheerful melody. "We want to see your insides." "Stop it," I shrieked. The front door didn't break down. It disintegrated. The wood turned to sawdust under the pressure of the sound waves. The freezing fog rolled into my hallway, and then they drifted inside. They didn't walk. Their feet didn't lift off the floorboards. They just glided forward, hovering an inch above the ground. The four of them circled me. The bone trumpets on their necks pulsed with every note. The sound was so loud now that my vision was going white. I felt a pop in my own jaw. It wasn't breaking, it was stretching. I felt my lower jaw unhinge. I felt the bones in my throat shifting, fusing, widening into a circle. One of them reached out a hand. It was an invitation. I tried to scream. I tried to beg. But the sound that came out of my throat wasn't a scream. It was a perfect high C note. The fog on the street was thick the next morning. The house was empty. The front door was wide open, swinging gently in the wind. Down the street, 5 figures walked into the mist. They walked in perfect unison. The 5th one was wearing my pajamas. The thick red scarf was wrapped tight around its neck, hiding the lower half of its face. It stopped at a neighbor's house. It turned to face the door. It tilted its head to the left, and we began to sing. Story 4, The Trade. The police said my little brother got lost in the woods on Christmas Eve. They said he ran away. They were wrong. I didn't lose him. I sold him. It was 1998. I was 10, I was a brat, and I wanted a PlayStation more than I wanted a sibling. I found the mailbox deep in the woods. It was painted matte black, nailed to a dead oak. No flag, no numbers. Just a symbol painted in red. An inverted candy cane. A hook. I wrote the note. "Take Toby, he is defective. I want the console." That night, the air in the house turned freezing. I crept downstairs. The light wasn't coming from the tree, it was coming from the fireplace. The flames weren't orange. They were a sick, chemical green. A figure stood there, impossibly tall, wrapped in bandages made of dirty, soot-covered ribbon. He didn't have a face, just 2 hollow pits filled with ash. The collector didn't look at me. He leaned over the playpen where Toby was sleeping. He reached down with a hand made of charred wood. He picked Toby up like a rag doll. Toby didn't cry. He just looked at the monster and smiled. The collector dropped my brother into a burlap sack that dripped black sludge. He cinched it tight. Then he placed a gray box under the tree. He nodded once. A business transaction? Then he stepped into the green fire and vanished. I got exactly what I wanted. I opened the box. I plugged in the PlayStation. But the logo didn't appear. The screen exploded into static. Through the white noise, a face formed in the pixels. It was Toby's face, stretched and distorted. screaming in silent digital agony. I buried the console in the yard. That was 30 years ago. I've lived alone ever since, punishing myself. Tonight, on Christmas Eve, there was a knock at my door. I opened it, my blood turned to ice. Standing on my porch was a little boy in blue pajamas, holding a teddy bear. It was Toby. He hadn't aged a day. He looked exactly like he did in 1998. Toby? I fell to my knees, sobbing. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I'll do anything to take it back. Toby didn't smile. He looked up. His eyes were gone. In their place were two black, infinite voids. You don't understand, Leo, he said. His voice sounded like grinding stones. I didn't escape. I made a trade. He held up a piece of yellowed paper. I wrote a letter too, Toby said, inside the bag. I told him I wanted my childhood back, and I offered him a replacement. I heard the rustle of dirty ribbon behind me. I spun around. The collector was standing in my hallway. The sack was open. It was a gaping black maw, waiting. No, I screamed. I'm the big brother. You can't. The collector's charred hand grabbed my neck. The skin burned like dry ice. He dragged me backward. I clawed at the floor, but he was too strong. He threw me into the darkness of the bag. The last thing I saw was Toby. He walked into my house. He shut the door. He picked up the remote control and sat in my chair. Be careful what you wish for, Leo, he said as the drawstring pulled tight. I fell into the dark, and then I saw them. Thousands of other eyes shining in the blackness of the sack. All the other traded children, and they were all hungry.